Hello and welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers, and you are in Season 6 of Wrestling at Random, where the theme, believe it or not, is more wrestling than ever. Wow, is that a funny one to think about? Because we have 60,000 hours of professional wrestling dumped into the randomizer. Randomizer does exactly what you would think it would do. It randomly pulls a show from all of those hours of professional wrestling for us to watch and talk about on the podcast. And yet, what did it do this week? It picked an episode of WWF All-Star Wrestling from October 24th, 1981, which is just 1 week apart from an episode of WWF All-Star Wrestling that the randomizer chose in the previous season. I don't think we've ever had this. We've had, over on the bonus feed, we had a situation where like a patron chose an episode of SmackDown, and then the randomizer pulled like the week before,
yeah,
this episode of SmackDown. We've had situations where on the bonus feed we ended up with a pay-per-view, and then on the free feed we get the TV show that was either leading into or coming out of that, but never the randomizer pulling across 2 seasons, 2 episodes 1 week apart.
No, many seasons apart here. We had significantly fewer amounts of wrestling programming in the randomizer back in season 2.
Yeah, probably like 15 to 20,000 hours of wrestling back then, maybe.
And season 2, we limited because season 1 was major events, pay-per-views, etc.
Yes.
Season 2 was only weekly television.
That's correct.
So we spun the randomizer, and whenever it would pull a weekly TV show of some kind, that's what we watched in season 2. And so season 2, episode 13, we reviewed WWF All-Star Wrestling from October 31st of 1981. We are in season 6. We're more than halfway through season 6, and the randomizer, we give it a spin, it pulls. That was publicly found content back in season 2. This is stuff that was readily available on the internet. WWE Network, Peacock, and then YouTube, right? Pretty much, and that was pretty much it. Here, the randomizer has a significant amount of private collections in addition to everything that is publicly available. Some things from the dark web. We've got so much wrestling content, and it's amazing that it pulled the week before's episode from the one we reviewed in season 2. So here in season 6, we are randomly chosen from a private collection, a copy of October 24th, the episode 1981's episode of WWF All-Star Wrestling. It is
you mentioned by
wild.
the way, the private collection, the and the dark web, like all Japan in the 90s walked the Royal Road. Here we are walking the Silk Road of professional wrestling here on the dark web. I still cannot get over the fact that with all the hours of wrestling available, the randomizer chose something adjacent to something from so many seasons prior, to your point, back when we had so much less wrestling in the randomizer available than we have now. Just ridiculous.
And so the way we start the show, I usually recap what's going on in the world of pro wrestling. What is this show? Like I mentioned, we already did that. Season 2, episode 13. If you want to go listen to the history, you should go back and listen to that episode. It'd be great to listen to it right after this one because it'll flow right into it.
I can guarantee you we're not going to become an all-star wrestling in sequential order podcast. There is not a high enough tier on the bonus feed at patreon.com/wrestling at random that could get me to do that.
Now, and remember that everything is evergreen content in our back catalog, so listening to that episode from season 2, episode 13 is just like it came out brand new today. So you can go back and listen to that episode. High level, All-Star Wrestling is kind of the B show compared to Championship Wrestling, All-American Wrestling. These are you're talking B shows here with All-Star Wrestling. And this show opens with a video montage, and it featured lots of Rocky Johnson doing 1-foot drop kicks. I'm seeing Andre the Giant doing a Northern Exposure.
Yes.
I'm in on this show. I'm more hyped than I thought I'd be after just watching that intro.
It was false hype as we go through the show. But yes, I my notes mentioned those two things exactly as well. They also note that we are in 1981, which is in the, give or take a year, where all wrestling promotions discovered slow motion. And so they have to use them just because no matter what, there's no good reason. The intro, the open is a very good example of that. We then see, as we did in that episode in season 2 of the podcast, we see your broadcast team of Vince McMahon and Pat Patterson in their Hockey Night in Canada powder blue jackets that don't have the Hockey Night in Canada logo on them.
Yeah, they preview the show, they run down who we're going to see tonight, and the highlight of this is that we will get to see the debut of Adrian Adonis. One of the favorites of this podcast is in his prime, Adrian Adonis, and we're going to get to see his WWF debut here.
Yeah, that got my attention right away. What also got my attention is that this show is starting not with live matches in the sense that matches are from this week's TV, but they are taking us back to your point, I'm guessing probably, a non-All-Star Wrestling WWF show that had this big match, which was Tony Garea and Rick Martel, the WWF Tag Team Champions, defending the championships against the team of Mr. Fuji and Mr. Saito, with Captain Lou Albano dressed just like Fuji and Saito, which is, again, something that is very much lost in modern professional wrestling, not only having managers, but having a manager that dresses like his wrestlers. I also enjoy when it's a manager that has a stable full of wrestlers, and they're on, the manager comes out multiple times on the same show with different wrestlers and will change into his specific wrestler appropriate gear each time on the same show.
Yeah, we go back. So this show aired October 24th. This match that we're about to see took place October 13th. I'm sorry, it aired originally October 13th on WWF Championship Wrestling. So this aired on the A show. This match took place at Agriculture Hall in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Which I feel like we've seen for sure on WWF shows from this era, whether it be All-Star or definitely on some of those comp tapes or Calcium videotapes. I feel like I could be wrong, but the Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas defeating the Samoans WWF tag title, which I believe was from the same building.
I believe that is correct. Here, it's, like you mentioned, the WWF Tag Team Championship on the line. The champions, Rick Martel and Tony Garea, defending against the challengers, Mr. Fuji and Mr. Saito, the team I refer to as Team Mr. Mister. And Fuji does his salt ceremony in the corner before the match. Martel gets in there, and we start, and Martel is fired up. He's throwing arm drags all around. The people love them some Rick Martel, and I am people. I'm loving this too.
Absolutely. He's, I've talked before about not having much of an emotional investment in WWF wrestlers as a kid in, the mid to late 80s into the early 90s. And I've talked about Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig being two exceptions to that. Rick Martel was another one. Obviously, I was, let's see, 5 months old when this aired, so I was not a Rick Martel fan in October of 1981, but I became one very quickly. Also,
Mr. Perfect would have fit in this faction with Mr. Saito, Mr. Fuji as well.
He would have been Mr. I don't know about him throwing salt. That would have been a little bit odd. What also was odd was this ring announcer saying that Rick Martel was from, quote, Quebec City, as though Quebec City is just one town over from Queewee, a famed name on this podcast as well. Man, the team of Rick Martel and Tony Garea, we'll talk about it through this match. It always gets me because Rick Martel is so great.
He's so great.
And Tony Garea is just the epitome of just a guy.
Yeah, we'll get into it as this match goes on. Garea comes in. He keeps the attack on Fuji. And what a difference in intensity between when Garea comes in and when Martel gets back in. It's night and day.
It's completely different. It's funny too, because particularly this era where Martel is not as jacked as he would be as Rick the Model Martel some 10 years later. But like, if I was to not have my glasses on where I'm borderline legally blind, but I can still see shapes and colors, I would see these two men in the ring and almost not be able to tell the difference, particularly with lo-fi footage. But man, like you said, the difference, not just in intensity, but just in believability as a wrestler and as a character. Like everything Martel does is crisp and on point, and everything Garea does is either boring or like this like wacky, over exaggerated selling that completely takes you out of the match. At least it did with me.
I also think that Martel hits the ropes faster than anyone in the entire New York territory.
Yes, which is a dangerous thing to do, because these are basically boxing ring ropes, but you only have 3 ropes instead of the 4 ropes in boxing. The amount of give when Rick Martel hits the ropes, like they have to be going back a good 2 feet away from the ring as he hits them.
Yeah, he hits a crossbody, gets a 2 count. Mr. Fuji's in there, and he sucks. Saito's in there. He's good. So this is 2 teams facing off where one guy sucks and one guy's good on both sides.
The funny thing is, too, didn't we see Mr. Saito versus Rick Martel for the AWA World Title on a Tokyo Dome show that we reviewed?
I believe that is correct.
In like 19...
No, that was that Zbyszko and Saito?
Or maybe it was Zbyszko and Saito. Yeah. My brain was trying to make it better and make it Martel and Saito. But it's 2 guys who would later wrestle the AWA and would feud over, would wrestle for that. Like it's 2 great wrestlers and 2 just guys with them. Like you would think here where, like I think of Fuji teaming with Demolition. Was it at Royal Rumble or WrestleMania?
That was at WrestleMania 5 and 89.
89. Yes. So like I think of that and I think of like, my God, old and feeble Mr. Fuji wrestling in 1989 as a manager, and like, wow, he's going to get killed. He is no better here. No more athletic, no more physically impressive.
No, if you told me those matches were 2 years apart, I would believe you.
If you told me this was the go-home show for WrestleMania 5, I would believe it, just based on the physical appearance and physicality of Mr. Fuji.
Oh, this is all baby faces early. Saito cuts Garea off with some good-looking punches, and the Japanese go to work on Garea. Horrible chops from Fuji, but good strikes from Saito.
Horrible chops from Fuji. These little like double chops to the chest that almost look like he's just like reaching down to pinch his pecs. Meanwhile, everything that Saito does, even if it isn't spectacular, like solid. It's solid. It looks physical. It looks like it would hurt, like in a good working pro wrestling way. It's very, very clear who the wrestler is on this team. Other thing I just wanted to note, because it immediately took me back to the other shows we've watched with Vince McMahon and Pat Patterson on commentary, or even from this era of WWF where it was just Vince on the call. The long periods of time in a match with the announcers not saying anything, particularly at the start of the match, where sometimes it's 3-4 minutes in before the announcers start saying anything. There was also this really strange period where Patterson, like he's in the middle of saying a sentence, and then he just stops talking in the middle of the sentence, doesn't finish his thought. We have no commentary for like a minute and a half, and then here's Vince again. I know that in the past people have said those long, like quiet commentary periods are from like when local drop-ins were happening, promoting the shows, but that doesn't explain this Pat Patterson thing where he just stopped talking.
So they tease a hot tag to Martel, and the crowd is going nuts. They want this Martel tag. Martel comes in illegally. The ref puts him out. Fuji, Saito, and Albano gets in there for some triple teaming on Garea. We get loud "Let's go Tony" chants. Not a great chant.
No, not a great chant. Also, if you're cataloging things about Tony Garea that aren't great. His faded old man forearm tattoos. Like, it took about 10 minutes before I actually realized he had tattoos, and he looks like a 70-year-old sailor from the 30s with these tattoos that are barely visible. He looks like he's probably 35, which means he's actually 19, probably in 1981. It just, throw it onto the pile of lame Tony Garea things.
Saito misses a charge into the corner. Garea finally makes the tag to Martel, and he goes crazy. He even hits a flying head scissors here. Drop kick by Martel.
This flying head scissors, it's the Ricky Steamboat style flying head scissors where you're up on the guy's shoulder and you kind of pose to the audience. Like he basically hit a Canadian destroyer style move out of this. What this was in actuality was him accidentally inventing Hechicero's spinning head scissors driver here in 1981 in the WWF.
Garea comes in illegally. He throws a drop kick, and then the ref is putting Garea out of the ring. Martel comes off the top rope with a crossbody onto Saito, but as he's flying through the air, Fuji throws salt into the face of Martel. Saito rolls through the crossbody and gets the pin. We have new WWF Tag Team Champions, Mr. Fuji and Mr. Saito. Martel holding his eyes, selling the pain post-match. 9 minutes, 48 seconds on the match.
Panic selling from Martel. It's one of the things I love. It doesn't happen often enough when something like this happens. Someone gets salt thrown in their eyes or they get misted. Someone's like, oh, they're grabbing their eyes and they're down. But like, if you were actually blinded, you would be freaking the hell out, not only for the pain, but because you can't see. Martel is tremendous with this. The only thing that really took me out of that, what I actually thought was a really fun finish, was the ring announcer afterwards sounding like he was born in Transylvania. This is not Gary Michael Capetta, who we will get for the rest of the show. We get a slow motion replay afterwards, which is actually really well done, in that here we are able to see that Captain Lou Albano passed the salt to Mr. Fuji. And this is one of those like great heels just doing heel stuff because it's in their blood and it's what they know. The referee is distracted. He can't see this at all. Albano takes the salt packet out of his tights, passes it to Fuji. Fuji puts the salt packet in his tights, has it in there for like a second and a half, reaches back into his tights, pulls the salt packet out, and throws it into the face of the flying Rick Martel. I cackled when I saw this. It's also like, what else would happen when it's Lou Albano and Mr. Fuji, two managers, one of which inferior wrestler, but two managers conspiring to have a tainted, chicanery-laden victory. The match wasn't great, but I love this finish, and I love seeing Rick Martel do Rick Martel things.
Yes, and the Rick Martel post-match selling, tremendous job.
I was trying to think of, by the way, how lame that post-match selling would have been if it was Tony Garea hitting the flying crossbody and getting
the correct guy doing it. Yes, this is the correct guy.
I don't know if there was agenting back then, but whoever made the call on this made the right call.
We shift venues, and we are going to see matches now that were taped October 14th, 1981. They aired on this show 10 days later on the 24th. We are, like I mentioned, somewhere new. This new location is the Fieldhouse in Hamburg, Pennsylvania. Gary Michael Capetta is now our ring announcer. This is an upgrade, as you mentioned. And we have our opening contest. Lee Wong versus Jesse the Body Ventura with his manager, the Hollywood fashion plate, classy Freddie Blassie.
There is so much to say in terms of a fashion corner around all these men. The best thing about Freddie Blassie here is like he's wearing these high-waisted 130% polyester orange pants. He has a yellow polo shirt tucked into it. There has never been a more human being distillation of old man than Freddie Blassie here. Like, this is what old men are supposed to look like. It's so great. Jesse is I would buy a reproduction of the Jesse Ventura shirt that Jesse is wearing here with the caricature. I didn't fully understand that part of Jesse Ventura's gimmick, at least during this time period. He's Jesse the Body Ventura, and he just has like an average wrestler body, but he thinks he's a Greek god. He thinks he's like Scott Steiner in the year 2000.
This also went over my head for decades, and I didn't get it, and it really hit home here on a show where you're going to have Tony Atlas on this show. You're going to, superstar Billy Graham was just recently the champion. And like, you've got dudes who are massive and jacked, and Jesse the Body Ventura has an average body.
Tall. He's tall. Big. There's mass. He's not fat. He's got decent sized arms, but like, there is no musculature. There's no definition. And man, is Vince McMahon offended by this.
Yeah, and it makes a ton of sense now that he's convinced that he's the body of the company, but there's so many better bodies in the company. So it's very, very funny to pick up on that gimmick now. This is a very basic match, nothing much to note. Jesse wins quick with a bear hug in 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
Jesse Ventura was not a good in-ring professional wrestler. I feel like the only value to him having been a wrestler was that as a color commentator, he could credibly say, I was a wrestler, but he just brought nothing to the table in the ring. Lee Wong, you talked about how well Rick Martel hits the ropes. Lee Wong is as far to the opposite end of the spectrum that is possible. It's like early WWF Divas era women's wrestling rope running here from Lee Wong. The other note was just Jesse, again, with this average wrestler body for 1981, creating the exact post-match pose-down sequence of Hulk Hogan.
I see the Grand Wizard, one of my least favorite characters in all of pro wrestling. A man, Ernie Roth, the Grand Wizard. I have never understood. Every time I see him, does not help. It does not make me understand anymore that he was a thing, and I don't get it. He's managing the Intercontinental Champion, the Magnificent Morocco, in what is a match against Barry Hart, who we've seen before. He's the future Barry Horowitz.
We've seen Barry Horowitz, Barry Hart just about everywhere, including from 1 year after this, having a televised match with Ric Flair on Florida Championship Wrestling. Championship Wrestling for Florida, whatever you want to say. Also, just wanted to briefly go back to the commentary on the previous match because it was such an absurd exchange between Vince McMahon and Pat Patterson. Vince McMahon says, Freddie Blassie had a fantastic body at one time. Pat agrees and then says, Blassie looks great now. He recently lost a lot of weight because he was tired of being called fatso. And I'm not doing justice to just the matter-of-fact way in which this entire conversation went. It's also just indicative, again, of how strange the WWF already was getting in 1981 and how strange the commentary was with Vince McMahon and Pat Patterson, in that almost every bit of analysis about the wrestlers was about their bodies and their physiques rather than what they were doing in the ring or even the storylines they were involved in.
No, because most of them weren't doing anything in the ring, and you'd have those long pauses too. You'd have where they just weren't saying anything, and just to get a conversation going, they'd start with, "Yeah, pretty good physique on this guy," or "No physique on this guy whatsoever."
I definitely think that's part of it. I also think Vince McMahon already had stars in his head thinking about what he wanted the promotion to be and how obsessed he was with physique and looks. Sure. And there were some guys in the promotion that fit his idea of what a professional wrestler looked like, and there were a lot of guys who didn't, and he was going to tell you that.
Yes, there was no mystery of where you stood with commentator Vince. The Magnificent Morocco drops him throat first across the top rope. Fans are getting under his skin by calling him a beach bum.
Including a big sign. I always love it. You'd see like signs back in the 80s where it's like half a row of fans holding up a big banner and it just says beach bum.
Morocco rolls him up for the quick pin, 2 minutes, 30 seconds here on the win for Morocco. Pat Patterson interviews Morocco and the Grand Wizard afterward. Morocco's talking about the Pacific Ocean.
He's talking about low pressure zones and being seduced by the lure of the Pacific Ocean. I would have to put a lot of time to think about the last time that I saw an interview that as it went along, I changed my mind so many times as to whether I thought Don Morocco was a good promo guy or a bad promo guy. Because this is a
wild ride.
He's got Grand Wizard with him. He's cutting this promo first, though. It is a wild ride. It is not a short ride. There are times where you can tell he is about a half a second away from having nothing to say, and then he saves it by having something that almost works but doesn't quite work. And then the last 30 seconds, he just becomes cool pro wrestler Don Morocco, talking about reaching out and feeling the power. He's getting sassy about having a vision as a young boy that everything in the world would be his. And then he ends his promo before handing it off to the Grand Wizard. I had to rewind this 3 times to make sure I heard this correctly. Don Morocco said, quote, "I am a man of breeding."
He did.
What a man. Also, what the hell was this? This was just early 80s pro wrestling, promo ranting at its best / worst. You couldn't take your eyes or ears off of it, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's going to suffer on this eastern seaboard. He's not going anywhere. And the Grand Wizard closes this promo by he's still a terrible promo. I don't understand. He follows this up with another terrible promo.
He his delivery is bad. He says nothing to the point to where this promo then goes back to Don Morocco saying more things before Pat Patterson basically cuts it off and it goes to commercial as Morocco is still trying to talk.
After commercial, Steve King is in the ring and he is taking on the debuting Adrian Adonis with his manager, Freddie Blassie. Yes, please. I am psyched. This is what I've been looking forward to.
This is so great. Again, right away, Adonis comes out and he's looking like New York street / glam punk Adrian Adonis. He's got the black leather jacket, which says, "I love Adrian" on the back. He is wearing black leather gloves. He's got a black leather baseball cap. We talk a lot of times about wrestlers inventing moves unwittingly or inventing the careers of a wrestler down the line. And I know we've touched on this before, but man, when you see it, all you can think of is this man invented the Shawn Michaels heel persona and gets zero credit for it.
A drop toe hold takes him down quickly. Adonis picks him up, hits a shoulder breaker. We get rugged brawling from Adonis. So we've seen him do amateur wrestling. We saw him do some technical pro wrestling here with a beautiful shoulder breaker. Now we're seeing rugged brawling in the corner. He can do it all. This man can do it all. And
he can do it all. And it's interesting because on commentary, you can hear Vince is super impressed by him as a wrestler, but is not impressed at all, even in 1981, by Adrian Adonis's body. I see him here, and I know he was in a bunch of different territories, but man, I see him this dude was so much better of a fit for every territory except for the one he was in.
Except this one. Yeah. This one needed him. They needed that Murdoch and Adonis team to be the tag team champions.
Actual good workers.
Yes, they needed that in this territory. But my God, what he could have been in other territories and what he should have been in other territories.
Could you imagine Adrian Adonis as a member of the Horsemen?
Totally fine fit. Wouldn't be out of place.
Adrian Adonis feuding with the Von Erichs. Adrian Adonis taking the spot, dare I say, of Buddy Roberts and the Freebirds.
Could have been unbelievable. This guy... So King is throwing some forearms, but they have no effect on Adonis. He hits a bunch of headbutts into a sleeper hold, and he's screaming, "Good night, Irene," when he's got the sleeper locked down.
The song "Good Night, Irene," he's singing the lyrics to it as he is putting this man to sleep.
And King is out. Thank God Adonis wakes him up with a strong shot to the back of the neck. Otherwise, wrestling physics in 1981... you would have died if your opponent didn't wake you up, and the referee pleading with Adonis to wake up the opponent that he just put to sleep.
Yeah, the referee ordered him, like it was a part of the regular proceedings here. It was understood that when you submit a guy with a sleeper, you have to then wake him up. Otherwise, you will be disqualified, I guess, for cruel and unusual punishment.
The show has peaked. And we still have a couple of matches left.
The show is about to peak with the appearance of Bill Dixon.
Yes. My notes say Bill Dixon is incredible. Let's intro this first. Australian style tag team match.
Which means tag team match.
Regular tag team rules apply. The team of Mr. USA, Tony Atlas, teaming up with SD Jones, Special Delivery Jones. They are taking on the team of Jose Estrada and Gary, Indiana's own Bill Dixon.
Bill Dixon's look is a sight to behold. Long purple tights, terrible husky body, goatee, huge curly afro that is more like a chia pet than anything else. This guy, so this is 1981. Bill Dixon appeared in the WWF sporadically until 1988.
Wow.
His last match is listed as a loss to Brooklyn Brawler Steve Lombardi at a house show at the Civic Arena in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That was in 1988. He also had... So I guess maybe he was only a Pittsburgh guy by that point because he did one match for the WWF in 1987, losing to the Junkyard Dog. Let's see. He did 3 matches in 1985, all at the Civic Arena in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, including 2 separate losses to the British Bulldogs teaming with Rene Goulet. And talk about a match that's a main event anywhere in the world at a house show. October 5th, 1985. Bill Dixon loses in 29 seconds to David Sammartino.
Oh, God. Bill Dixon is a spectacular jobber here. He understood the assignment, and he looks horrible. His
parents understood the assignment, creating a man specifically for this role in life. He was born. Like, I don't know what else he did in life, but this is what he was born for.
Jones and Atlas both putting on arm holds. My notes say, oh my God, nothing is happening. Estrada on the apron, running around trying to get a tag, is the most interesting thing in this match.
Estrada is awesome. Jose Estrada is so great in everything he does in this match. He is bumping around like a madman off these arm drags for Atlas and SD Jones. He has just these great, like, heel selling mannerisms. It almost in some ways reminds me of heel Cash Wheeler in FTR. He's a guy that, like, I would be very interested in seeing him doing something other than being a jobber plus somewhere.
We get a backdrop by Atlas. Dixon flips all the way over. If he was an athlete, you'd think this man was trying to land on his feet. However, he is not, and instead he just collapses like he destroyed all of his joints.
It was as if he went full Vince McMahon and or full Kevin Nash, and just tendons exploded. We've had a few of these on the show in recent weeks, if you're listening in linear fashions, where out of shape, pathetic enhancement talent.
Amos Moses.
Amos Moses, exactly. Amos Moses and Bill Dixon. Talk about two men that if they never crossed paths, they should have.
That's a 5-star wrestling. If you skipped over, I've never heard of 5-star wrestling, and you skipped over that episode, do yourself a favor. Go back and listen about Amos Moses.
Man, yeah, Amos Moses and Bill Dixon, a Battle Bowl team for the ages. Dixon, just like when you see him, if you were to be told this man is going to get backdropped and he's almost going to accidentally land on his feet, whatever you imagine in your mind's eye is exactly what this would look like.
SD with a falling power slam. Atlas then presses this man's doughy body over his head. Dixon high in the air. He gets slammed off the press slam from Atlas, and Tony Atlas gets the pin. The Black Bombers with the victory.
I also enjoyed during this match Pat Patterson telling us that, like, hey, do you notice the wrestlers are respecting the referees more after Angelo Mosca got DQ'd and suspended a couple of weeks ago for taking a shot at the refs? We should also mention Bill Dixon had another great moment in this match where he gets like a nanosecond of offense with an eye rake off of one of the many distractions that Estrada was trying to create on the apron. SD immediately cuts this offense off with a punch and a headbutt, and Bill Dixon just rumbles to the mat like someone like he was a droid that got unplugged and just fell down. It was so dual contrast of Bill Dixon and Tony Atlas is what professional wrestling is all about.
Loved it. Yes, loved that. And our final match, our curfew match.
We thought Bill Dixon was great. Here we go. It's another appearance from a guy I had forgotten about. Jeff Crainey.
Jeff Crainey.
As uninteresting as WWF television was during this time period, like there were no hot angles ever happening.
None.
Like
they had a tag team title change. They did show it on every single show.
Yes.
But there was nothing else. Like
no great promos. But the one thing they had in terms of unintentional entertainment was horrendous, barely trained, pathetic looking jobbers. And Jeff Crainey, he has these like maroon tights, no knee pads, no elbow pads, no wrist tape, short black boots, a long curly perm, and a mustache. And that's not even talking about him in the ring.
His opponent, Hans Schroeder. Hans muscles him down, stomps him. Crainey picked a leg, and that's the end of his offense for the day.
You are leaving out the best offense of the match from Jeff Crainey. That attempt at a drop kick at the very start of the match where
this next it's right after this because
I guess the other stuff was so ineffectual I didn't even take notes on it.
Yes, Schrader throws him down again, and this is when we get the drop kick attempt by Crainey that was so hideous and so ineffective that everybody, even Vince and Pat Patterson, thought it was hilarious.
I've seen completely missed drop kicks that only catch air that somehow were more impactful than this connecting drop kick by Jeff Crainey. It's worth if you can find this on the Silk Road, it's worth seeking it out. This was something else. I also enjoyed Pat Patterson at the start of this match talking about Hans Schroeder, he's in the lineage of guys in the 70s and 80s who are decent sized but not big, wearing King Kong Bundy singlets for no reason.
Yes.
Pat Patterson points out that Hans Schroeder Schroeder, whatever, basically only lasts a month or so in every territory he's in. No more context as to why.
Crainey's dumped outside, and Schroeder pulls him back in over the top rope into the ring.
This is like this was like wrestling physics to another level. Even Vince is like, I expected him to go back out to the floor, but somehow he somersaulted back into the ring. This is followed up by Crainey. Like, I always go back to, I was on one of the first episodes of Monday Nitro. There was a power bomb that Chris Benoit gave Eddie Guerrero, where Guerrero's head hits the mat so hard that it looks like a basketball being dribbled. Like it careens off the mat and goes up in the air that high. Jeff Crainey takes this exact bump off of a punch. He gets punched and he nearly knocks himself out not knowing how to bump.
Hans throws Crainey so hard through the ropes that he clotheslines himself on the middle rope. This is brutal. I thought Crainey was dead here.
This is how you die as a professional wrestler. Again, he has no idea what he's doing. He doesn't know to like put your hands out wide when you're taking a back bump to absorb some of it. He has no idea how to go through the ropes and nearly dies. Then somehow that wasn't the most entertaining part of this. What happens next is like, it's just when like everything comes together to make art. Crainey is on the apron as Hans is getting ready to punch Crainey in the section perpendicular to where they're at. A young boy, maybe 8 years old or so, gets up out of his front row seat, and he is going to attempt to walk in front of the row by where the wrestlers are to, like, I don't know, he's going to go to the bathroom, get some popcorn. And as he's doing this, Crainey gets knocked off the apron and takes such an unnecessarily far bump off of the apron that this kid has to stop in his tracks and waits for Crainey to bump fully before proceeding. Oh my God, this made me so happy. I watched this more times than I care to admit.
The ringside seats are not that close to the ring. They're like New Japan Windy City Riot, far away from the ring.
You pay for front row and you end up 50 feet away from the ring.
Yeah, so these are not close. So Crainey's ridiculous bump was extra comical because it was so far away. Back inside, a backbreaker from Schrader, and he gets the victory. And that's the show. Like, it's over. Like, show's over.
Nothing telling us what's going to be coming up next week. No cliffhanger, nothing to hook you. I guess they tell us that we'll see both the former and current tag team champions in action next week. That's it. A total nothing show. If it wasn't for them showing the tag title change from the A show from the previous week, there would have been nothing at all on this show. But it was saved by Bill Dixon and Jeff Crainey.
And it's just so weird that you're less than 4 years, less than someone's high school career, less than someone's college education away from this to the rock and wrestling era. It's crazy how short of a time period this whole product completely changed its look and its feel and the atmosphere and what it was doing. The whole thing changed in such a short period of time. It's absolutely wild.
Has there ever been a promotion or a territory that has undergone such a dramatic transformation in such a short period of time while still being called the same thing? I honestly can't recall. I mean, it's not like they were just like, they were a territory sort of in terms of entertainment level, like on the level of the other territories. This was by far, of any promotion, any territory in the country that would be considered major, the most boring, like low energy, like no bells and whistles, no music, no video packages, nothing. And then 4 years later, they are as far to the opposite as you could be, like leading, for better or worse, a revolution into a completely different presentation of pro wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, maybe 94 to 97 WCW. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, but it still retained the same look to a great degree. I mean, there's a transformation in terms of the success. There's a transformation in terms of the energy,
just from like the Saturday night small studio show to like major arenas and sold out hot crowds and
yeah, I mean, I think it's
live
probably
shows.
It's the closest thing, but it's nowhere near it because
near.
You still had good lighting, you still had entrance music, you still had big name commentators, you had big name wrestlers. When they did the pay-per-views, they were in big arenas. This is, it's the only thing that would be somewhat similar. Again, it's nowhere near to the same level. But if you take like 93 Eastern Championship Wrestling and like 96 into 97 ECW, and that like there's a decent amount of the same guys still there, but different presentations. The vibe, the music, the energy of the crowd, even though it's in the same building, could not be more different. But still, that isn't as close as, isn't close to what the transformation of 81 to 85 WWF.
I think we've talked about our favorite things on this show. Is there a worse thing on this show?
I feel like we say this all the time with WWF at this time period. It's just how low energy and low effort it feels. Like we've talked about it before, but it bears repeating. Like this just feels like content. It's just, we have an hour we paid for, and we have to fill it with some wrestling matches. And that's it. There's nothing more to it. If I was going to pick someone on the show that I liked the least, I would honestly say it probably is Tony Garea. And I know he's not the worst wrestler on this show, obviously. But like, Tony Garea is a guy you'd always see out there in the suits, as a WWF official. As a kid, and you're like, oh man, that guy was a wrestler. I bet he was probably pretty good. Like he had to be pretty good, right? There had to be something to him for him to have this job. And nope, there isn't.
It's probably right. That and honorable mention to the Grand Wizard, always bringing everything down that he's associated with. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. We mentioned the bonus feed. If you're like, hey, I already listened to season 2 episode of this show that the next show here for All Star Wrestling, I already listened to it. Well, good news. If you're looking for more content because you've already listened to the entire back catalog of this free feed, over at our Patreon, patreon.com/wrestlingatrandom, there for $5, you can unlock over 220 plus episodes that you haven't heard, all new to you over in the bonus feed. $5 unlocks the entire back catalog. Some very famous matches, some randomly chosen stuff, but most of it intentionalized picks from our patrons who support us at that tier. So definitely a lot of probably your favorite wrestling moments. A lot of those are probably going to be over there, and a lot of territories, far-flung stuff that you've never heard of from all kinds of different time periods. So go check out the entire back catalog over there as well if you've already burned through the free feed content. And with that, we're going to wrap it up and call it a podcast. Make sure that you're also watching the video version of the podcast. Even if you don't consume your podcast through the video media, go ahead and if you throw us a like and subscribe over there, it helps us work the algorithm so other wrestling fans can find the show. We really appreciate that. And we'll call it a podcast here. Adam, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Jeremy. And I must say, you mentioned the YouTube. Everyone needs to go there and check out your sweet WWF All-American Wrestling t-shirt.
Please do, yes. And next time, we will fire up the randomizer and see what it chooses for us and see if it picks something. Maybe it'll pick the week after All-Star Wrestling.
November 7th, All-Star Wrestling. I'm quitting. I'm letting you know right now the podcast is over. There's only so much one man can take.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening. And we'll talk to you again next time.